All right, we will go ahead and get started. I know some folks might trickle in. For those of you who I haven't met before, I'm Miranda Hitchcock. I'm one of the founders of Every Dog Behavior and Training. We are local to Austin, Texas, although I grew up in the DC area and have some folks from DC here today. But we started this nonprofit in an effort to make dog behavior and training resources more accessible to folks in our community. We know that there's a lot of folks who traditionally do not have access to dog training support, and so we wanted to try to fix that. So we do a variety of things. We offer private training sessions virtually and sometimes in person. We do webinars a couple times a month. So that's what we're doing here today. We have one next week that's actually in Spanish about kids and dogs. Later this month, we have one from veterinary behaviorist Dr. Amy Pike, which is going to be amazing. And then one about fearful dogs in the beginning of April. So definitely stay tuned for more webinars. And if you have a reactive dog or know anybody who does, we run a reactive dog group. It's every other week. It's not exactly a class. It's sort of a mix between a class and a support group. So it's a great place to attend if you have a reactive dog and would like some training support and some moral support too. So we have a whole bunch of stuff. As I mentioned, we are a nonprofit. So please do consider making a donation today. It's how we make sure that we can offer these services for our community. This chat will be recorded. We have about an hour and a half today, and Tracy will take some questions at the end. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. That'll help us make sure that we can get to as much as we can throughout the time. And then, like I said, this will be recorded. So if you have to jump off, don't worry about it. We'll send out the link tomorrow. If you have any other questions as we go along, feel free and pop them in the chat box for me. And with that being said, I will go ahead and turn everything over to the amazing Tracy to introduce herself and take us away from here.
All righty, thank you. Now let me make sure that I share the right screen with you all. Hang on one moment.
That's our lovely website. If you haven't been there, you should go. It's great.
Website. And there we go. Everybody can see what we're supposed to be seeing. You can see the slides.
Yep, looks good.
Beautiful. Okay. I am so excited to do this with you guys and excited that there are some DC folks here as well. I am in Virginia, just outside of Washington, DC, and I do separation anxiety training for Humane Rescue Alliance. And I also do private separation anxiety training for anybody all over the world. So I've been doing a bunch of talks before things got really heated in the pandemic, and now after we've had a year to see what's going on and help these guys out. So I've got some new information this time than I had at the beginning of things, which is partly because holy cow, we've had a lot of dogs come our way this year. It has been just a little bit crazy with so many pandemic dogs. And so it's actually given us an opportunity to sample some different training opportunities, training protocols. And we've had some really cool results from it. So not only are we going to talk about what we can do about separation anxiety because of the pandemic and everything, but you're also going to hear about some newish approaches that we've been taking that have had some great results that we can now apply for dogs for here on out. So there we go. The first thing that I want to talk about is that we all say separation anxiety, right? Oh, my dog's got sep angst. His dog's got separation anxiety. The thing is, it goes a lot deeper. It's a little more complicated than anxiety. There are so many reasons why dogs exhibit problem behaviors when they are left alone. And here are 4 of the biggies. One is obviously that fear and anxiety, which we'll talk about. The next one is actually huge. It's frustration. And this I've seen much more during the pandemic than prior to the pandemic. Dogs who just, they want, and they're used to going out with us everywhere, or they're used to the kids being home all the time and the parents being home all the time. And anytime the dog barks, everybody's like, what? Stop. And the dog thinks they're playing. So these guys are just, they're a little bit out of their minds with frustration. And so, sorry, beep got me. So there are different ways to approach fixing the problem, hopefully, if it is fear or frustration, and we're going to look at that. Boredom is a big reason that dogs exhibit these problems as well. If anybody's brought a new dog into their home and came home to find their entire couch eaten, chewed, thrown apart, that might be in large part to boredom. We're going to talk about ways to give dogs the richest life possible so that we can minimize that chance from happening. Boredom is a scary thing. I mean, in prisons, people are put into isolation and they are afraid of it, to be put in a cell all day, as many days, and not have access to other people, whatever. It is aversive. It is scary. So if we think about that, we bring a dog into our home, dogs who are used to being out in the world and sniffing and chewing and digging and all this stuff. And we bring them into our home and we put food in a bowl a couple times a day, and then we leave them to go to work all day. Well, we're not giving them the life that they need to have. And that boredom can lead to separation anxiety, because it's scary to be alone with nothing to do. And then the fourth biggie that we often see is an underlying health issue. And all of these beautiful dogs, this is Emma the Beagle, my inspiration and my baby, and she is going to take us through all of it. She's a wealth of knowledge for me, because she's pretty much kind of had it all. On the table there, she's getting a cold laser therapy session. Emma really struggled with being alone. It took us a few years before we were able to actually truly leave our house without her fretting. And the reason we were able to finally leave is I figured out that she was in pain. Took her to the vet. It turns out she had arthritis, knees, hips, back, neck. And once they got her on medicine and started doing these cold laser therapies, suddenly she had the capacity to stay home alone. And after 3 years of struggles, she was up to multiple hours in 3 months, in about 3 months. So we've got to look at the underlying health issues. So we're really, in order to set up our dogs for success, we've got to look at all of it. We've got to give them, we've got to make sure their physical well-being is taken care of, that they're getting their health checkups, that if they're not feeling well, we're doing something about it, that they, if they need medication, they get medication. Then we've got to, so this is sort of like Maslow. It's not sort of, basically we're talking Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've got to meet the physical needs. We've got to meet the emotional well-being, give them the richest life, give them, all the joys that they can have so they can be their doggy selves. And then we can talk about, training them, doing some behavior modification, helping them to fit into our world and learn to communicate with us. So to start, I want you guys to start thinking about what life will look like when we get back into working in offices, going to movies, going out to dinners, all of these things, going to weddings, whatever it is. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I had actually, last summer, I had pretty major surgery. And when I came home from the surgery, I was very weak. And so I just wanted to get some movement in me. So my husband and I would go for a walk, little walks all the time. So it would be like 8, 9 times a day. When I first started, it was, okay, I'm going to walk to the street sign, or I'm going to walk around the block. And Emma the Beagle was like, cool, where are we going? And she would come out with us, and we would get to the street sign, and then I'd need to turn around, and she'd be like, okay. And then we'd come in. And then an hour later, we go do another one. Yay, we're going for a walk. And we'd go. And after like 3 or 4 of these, after a few days, she was like, you people are nuts. Like, I'm done with you. Go for your walk. I'm going to stay here on the couch. I'm totally happy. Just get out of here. And I see this picture of this dog up here, and I totally feel for that kid, because early on in the pandemic, it was the only outlet for many of us, was to go take our dogs for a walk. Well, life has changed dramatically for them. Those who lived with us prior to the pandemic, where before that, maybe they were going for a walk a couple times a day, or they were going to daycare or whatever. Well, now that we're looking at going back to that world, we need to start making our dog's day shifting towards that. If your dog has never been left alone, if you have a true pandemic pup, then still you need to be thinking, okay, if I'm going to be at the office all day, I can walk him at 8 in the morning, and then I can come home at noon, or I'm going to get a pet sitter. Whatever it is, start planning now. And I'm not saying tomorrow you need to do exactly this, but let's, little by little, gradually, let's start shaping their lives into what that's going to be. If you're walking them 5 times a day, start moving down to 4, or as you get closer to that going back to work time, that type of thing. If your dog needs to be in confinement of some kind, time to start working on that, when you're going to feed the dog, those kinds of things. So with confinement, a lot of, I would say, like, old school thinking about separation related problems would say, you've got to crate train your dog. You've got to be behind a gate, blah, blah, blah. I am not on page with that. I actually feel like confinement needs to be individual to the dog. So if you have a puppy or a dog new to the home who you're still house training, who you're still chew training, well, yeah, we need to come up with some type of confinement to puppy proof the area, so that your dog can not have accidents, can learn where it's appropriate to go to the bathroom, what's appropriate to chew on, and all that. Absolutely, we need to have confinement for that. But just because you have a dog and you need to leave your dog doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do that, especially if your dog is uncomfortable going into the crate. I have a lot of people who say, I'm still working it, I'm still trying to get him into that crate. Well, let's look at that. Maybe a gated area. This is what we have for Juniper, one of my favorite clients. Juniper gets this whole little hall with just this gate in front, and we've helped her to learn to fall in love with it. If you're in a crowded home, if your dog is very sound phobic, if it's just you're in an apartment and it's really noisy in the hallway and your dog reacts to it and stuff, a safe haven's a really good idea. A place in the home that you can set up, an open crate, a gated off area, a bedroom, something like this, where your dog can feel safe, gets the best food, is never punished there. It's not meant to be a timeout area or anything like this. It is a place for your dog to feel safe, to go there with you at first, and then eventually for you to be able to leave, and your dog knows, like, if there's thunder or something and I'm home alone, I can go to my safe haven. I feel safe and comfortable there. Much in the same way that a dog, who has a sound phobia seeks out a person, oftentimes for comfort. We can create a space in our home where your dog can, whether we're home or not, go to that place and feel safer, even in a scary moment. So let's bust a myth. I get this a lot, that I let my dog sleep with me. I know I shouldn't do it. I'm spoiling my dog. I'm just giving my dog too much attention. Everybody says I'm creating this problem, right? Probably not. I don't. While yes, there are things that we do as people that can certainly create a situation where our dogs are hyper dependent, or fearful, for that matter. Just spending a lot of time with your dog, giving your dog great food, or even, sleeping with your dog or letting your dog up on the couch, Those have not been proven to be, this is what's going to cause separation anxiety. I have been successfully able to train my dog and many, many, many other dogs where the dogs have free roam. They are allowed on the couch. They're allowed in the bed. It's your choice. If you don't want your dog on the couch or the bed, totally fine. But doing so is not going to be the reason why your dog has separation anxiety. We do need to give them independence. We need to teach them independence, but we can do that separate from cuddle time, if that makes sense. So how do we do this? How do we give our dogs independence and fight boredom and keep them from doing the things that we don't want them to do, getting into trouble, chewing up our stuff? We've got to let our dogs dog. We've got to let them be their inner beagle. I'm looking down at Emma. The way we do it is we let them use their nose. We let them use their mind. We let them use their digging, all this kinds of stuff. If we're talking going on walks, we can do a sniffari, where your dog's nose gets to lead the way. So I remember the first time in our last home, Emma was a little nervous in the area. So I let her lead me. We sniffed through the bushes. We sniffed under the foundation of the house. We sniffed in the fields next door. We just went on these crazy little loopy, turny sniffies all over the place, led by her nose. After about 40 minutes, she squatted, she peed, she looked up at me, and we went on the best walk we've ever been on. So if anybody tells you when you go on a walk, don't let your dog sniff, he's got to focus on you. No, that is not the case. We see our world through our eyes, through our ears. Dogs, they are focusing with their nose. They are sniffing. So let your dog sniff. Now, of course, there are going to be times where you're going for a run with your dog. If it's that, if your dog does that kind of thing, or you need to get from point A to point B. Sure, understood. We can do training to get dogs to walk with us as we need. But as much as possible, let them sniff. Let them take you on a sniffari. 30 minutes of sniffing out there is going to tire them out so much more than a two-mile walk is going to do. So that's going to be a big thing to help just decompress some of these guys. In terms of ways that we can give them independence while giving them something fun to do and protect against boredom, we can do that in our home by the way that we feed them. All of these things, these food toys and sniffaris and stuff, we're not doing this stuff like giving our dogs a Kong or something as a distraction. This is a necessity. This is, the reason I knit and I do triathlon and things like this, because it fulfills me. So we need to find that stuff for our doggies. So how do we do it? One, ditch the bowl. Start thinking about ways to feed your dog where they can enjoy themselves. They can use their nose, they can use their mind. You can make stuff. I'll show you a bunch of different things. The dog licking right there is one of my clients who's licking a licky mat. My other client, Zadie, is eating out of her snuffle mat. So a licky mat is great for like wet food, or you can take kibble and moisten it with some water and squish it onto the licky mat. So your dog licks, licks, licks. The snuffle mat, you just take the kibble or treats and you put it inside the little pieces of fabric, and then your dog gets to sniff around and eat that stuff, and it makes it much more of a fun dining experience, much as they would get if they were out scavenging in the wild or happening upon like some yummy food. You can be very strategic about the toys, both in when you give it to the dog. So say you're going to be getting on a conference call and you need your dog to settle down. Well, a licky mat might be a really good thing to do because we're giving them an activity, but licking is really soothing as well. So your dog licks and licks and licks and then is like, okay, I'm going to snooze now. But you can also do it to affect their emotional well-being. So if you have a dog who is super duper hyper and you want to bring this dog down, a frozen Kong that they can lick, a licky mat, that kind of stuff, a good sniff, that's going to be really good. If you have, say, a really timid dog who's afraid of moving away, then you can use like a food ball where you put the treats in the ball and the dog is moving a little bit away because they're working on this ball. And what's really nice about this stuff is we set it up, but then the dog gets to play on their own. They get to have their time on their own. So there's some of that independence that I'm talking about. So we can be in our home with our dogs, set up the food toys, set up the day with all their little activities, and then let them go enjoy themselves. The red Kong that you see down there, that's a Kong wobbler. The hole there, you fill up kibble in the base, and then the dog bats it around and lets the food out. If you want your dog to settle down and feel calm, probably a wobbler and a ball, that kinds of things at that moment are not ideal. Another time of the day, sure. But when you need them to relax and settle down, you want to go more on like the licky, sniffy kind of stuff. So here's some examples of things that you can do. Moo is modeling a very simple muffin tin. My friend and colleague Joanna put the food inside the little pieces and just put the balls on it, and boom, Moo gets to eat there. On the bottom, Emma the Beagle, my husband just tossed her a piece of kibble in the yard. He likes to toss one piece at a time. She's going to sniff all over the yard and then she'll find that piece. I like to scatter a whole bunch when I do it. So he thinks it's fun to watch her like jump around. It is cute. So you can do it. Good job. She found her kibble, and that is a cheap and easy, if you have a yard, way to give your dog some enrichment. Now she's modeling a ball. She's looking at me like, lady, this is supposed to be me time, and now you've got a camera in my face. But she, walks around with her little ball. That is wonderful for her. She has some fear issues with certain parts of the room and on the wood and stuff. So playing with her ball, it goes all over the place, and she can enjoy herself and kind of conquer some of those fears. You can take a Amazon box. We've got all these boxes from all these deliveries. You can put some food inside on the bottom and some paper and then like another little stuffed toy in there or whatever. So your dog gets to have like a sacrificial box. If your dog is one of these guys who likes paper and digging and boxes and all that kind of stuff, that's a great thing. Long lasting chews. We have one dog that chewed up the windowsill, not because she was scared to be alone, or it was a he, not because he was scared to be alone. His mom was 4 feet away on a conference call. He was just bored. He wanted to chew something. So we've switched them to some kind of bones or antlers. He's really good with this cow knuckle. I'm a vegan, so this is horrible, but dogs seem to like it. When Remy eats, he can get little pieces and he might swallow it. So by giving him something like the cow knuckle, that is safer for him so that he isn't at risk at swallowing it. So let's talk about a little bit, how do we know if our dog is afraid or frustrated? We've got these two major buckets of emotional situations that we want to help the dog with. We need to understand, what is the underlying cause. So fear is a dog wants safety, wants distance from something scary. When a dog growls and lunges and all that, that dog is saying, kind sir, you're making me uncomfortable. Can you please back up and give me space? That's what fear is. They need distance away from a perceived threat. And when a dog is fearful, researchers have determined that these actions can tell us that a dog is scared. So panting, cowering, like not really very energetic, licking their lips and their nose, eyes go wide, shaking, we'll see, running away for safety. Again, it's trying to get some distance. Frustration is I want something. I want to go with you. I want to play. I want to eat now. I want to say hi to that dog. I want you to leave that piece of food there. That's mine. I don't want you eating that. How do we know frustration? You can tell it by, oftentimes you'll see the like the ears move away, like the base of the head seems to like elongate. The ears get flat. We'll see more nose licking as opposed to like the shallower lip licking, yawning, a lot of blinking, and a drop jaw before, oftentimes you'll see like the jaw drop before they might start vocalizing. So let me show you a couple. Emma the Beagle's going to show you a couple different videos of what these look like in her case. So we thought it would be a great thing years ago when Emma was afraid to be alone if we got this food machine, which is a wonderful device. It's called a pet tutor, and it really is wonderful, and it helps tons of dogs. But our goal was that she wasn't scared when we left her, and it scared her. Loud, food hitting a hard bowl, that's scary to her. So you can see she was apprehensive. Her tail is tucked, her body is small. She was really, I think there was maybe a paw raise in there. She was uncomfortable. This is not a girl who is like, I need more of this. This is, I am scared. Now look at her. Watch the ears, watch for the yawn, watch for the jaw drop. When Emma is saying, I want to go out. I want you to go out with me. I want to play. There are the ears. And there's the big yawn. And I love her so much. She's totally adorkable. And I'm so horrible for thinking that's cute because she's obviously, she needs to feel better in that instance, but it's just adorkable and I can't stand it. But it really does show, you can really clearly see her ears parting at that point. You can see the yawn. You could see you can even see it there, the jaw drop. So let's talk. So we're going to deal first with the anxiety part of it, and then we'll go to frustration. And many times we see both at the same time, but we're just going to kind of separate it out for clear explanations for this. So separation anxiety, to me, understanding what the word anxiety means has had a profound impact on my understanding of what these dogs are going through. And so anxiety is the anticipation of a threat, a scary thing, a danger, okay? It's the anticipation of it. So when people say to me that, oh, my dog never leaves my side, she's howling and barking, all this stuff when I'm gone, and when I'm home, she is just on me all the time. I think about the definition of anxiety. And so I'm afraid of spiders, like card-carrying arachnophobe, legit. I lived in a house in England filled with spiders, lived there for 6 months. I earned my card. I'm very, very scared. Nowadays, my house in Virginia is pretty darn spider-proofed. I don't see many spiders. So I'm not constantly anticipating. I'm not walking around like, where's there going to be another one? I did do that in the house in England, but here I'm not. I feel really comfortable. But think of a dog who is afraid to be alone. And then we stand up and we walk to the door, or we walk past the door, or we walk near the door, or we walk into a different room, or we pick up our keys to to dust the counter. And with every one of those actions, if this dog has true separation anxiety, it means that every time they're in this heightened sense of anticipation of this doom, of this thing that's coming down their way. And that's just a horrible way to live. So just keep that in mind when you think about like why, when we start training these dogs, we suddenly start to see them following less, and their eyes are coming, are staying a little more closed. They're not so wide open. It's that we're taking away that anticipation of the scary thing. So what does it look like when it's in the moment, when a dog has separation anxiety and is left alone? I'm going to show you the video of Emma back in the early days, before, when we just captured it. We didn't realize what was going on, and then we caught it on video. You'll see many of the normal behaviors, common behaviors: pacing, running around frantically, howling, barking. It's a very plaintive cry. It's not your woof, there's somebody at the door, but it's a cry that you can hear. She used to urinate on she would at some point probably urinate on the floor. In this video, she's going to urinate on the couch. After this video, she most likely went to the door and would have been chewing the door frame. A lot of trainers still have, somebody comes to them and says, so my dog has separation anxiety and she barks and she howls and she runs and whatever. And they say, okay, let me watch. I don't do that anymore. I used to do that. I'm going to show you how I do this now. I don't want to scare these dogs any more than they're already scared. So I've developed some methods to address this and to figure out how to help these guys without farther harming them. So if your dog is exhibiting any of those behaviors, the best thing that you can do is stop leaving them in that position and that alone, and then let's get them some help. So let's talk about this myth. My dog needs to learn that I always come back. I've heard that so much. People always say this: I go out, I come back. I know I'm not going to come back when he's barking. He needs to know not to bark. So I come back in, but he'll eventually learn that I always come back. We need to think of it differently. We need to switch that. And rather than think about our dog learning that we always come back, we need to think of it as, your dog needs to learn that nothing bad happens when you walk out the door. Do you hear the difference? So the dog is scared, but if I come back, he'll learn it's okay, versus I look like this floof on the floor here, this amazing dog who was just a wreck the first time I met him. And within a week of doing some really simple exercises, this is what he looked like, because he learned that nothing bad happened when his folks walked out the door by the exercises that we did. Think of it this way. So we know about me and spiders. If somebody were to lock me in my office and start flooding the room with tarantulas, I'm going to lose it, right? Anybody's going to lose it, but I'm done. So I'm screaming. I'm probably peeing my pants. I'm certainly not eating food. I am running to the door. I am, scratching, trying to throw things to break the door down. I am losing it. And eventually, an hour later, my husband comes home, sees what's happening, opens the door, lets me out. I am so relieved to be out of that space. Awesome. That's fantastic. I don't have to deal with that again. A week later, the same thing happens. some horrible person, if it's my husband, we're going to have a little conversation, but somebody else, we're going to assume, has locked me in my office again, floods it with spiders. Do you think I'm going to say, you know what, it's going to be okay because at some point, Tom always comes back and lets me out? Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, if you're afraid, you're afraid, and no amount of rational thinking. And frankly, that is somewhat irrational or awfully irrational, given that spiders, tarantulas, are poisonous. So it's not even logical to sit there and go, it's okay, he'll always come back. So just put yourself in that position. Like, if you're thinking about, I've just got to tell my dog that I always come back, think about what it would feel like to be in that level of fear. And would you then be able to say, well, you know what, I stopped barking and that's when they came in, so that's what I'll do the next time. I mean, it's not rational. Fear isn't rational. So how do we do it? How do we help these guys look like this is Emma the Beagle left alone nowadays? That total awesome side flop that is like favorite thing in the world to see. We're going to use a method called desensitization, and probably most, if not all of you guys have heard the term desensitization before. I mean, it's all over the internet. Google it, it's everywhere. Desensitization is, it's a psychological method that is being, that is, comes from human psychology, that it's how we help people overcome fears. And we do the same with animals. So there are 3 parts to it. Now, the first one, everybody knows about, right? You got to go out and come in and go out and come in. We're going to introduce the scary thing little by little. So everybody says you got to do that. But it's the second one and the third one where most people make mistakes. I've done it. I mean, this is hard stuff, right? So part 2 is we have to do it at a level that is not at all scary to the dog. None. Zip. Dog is fine. I'm not biting my nails. I don't have my eyebrows raised. I'm not sweating. Dog is not panting. Dog is not whimpering. Dog has not gone to the door. Dog is chill. We want the dog to be totally chill. And 3, not just scared, completely relaxed. Okay. So if there's, and this isn't a joke, I have a colleague who has a client right now with a child who plays the drums, tap dances. I think maybe there was a tuba in there. They're home all day long. The whole family's home all day long. They're having quite a hard time training this dog to feel safe alone because this kid is just, I mean, it's just crazy there. He can't get relaxed. So we have to figure out a way to get them relaxed. One way, if we need to, is by creating that safe haven. We carve out that nook. If we're in a situation like that, where we often are now in the pandemic, where we do create a space that is relaxing to the dog. So let's talk about how this works. I find that the human example really helps to kind of drive the point home. So think about our guy here. We'll call him Frank. Frank is terrified of climbing ladders. He went to get on the roof when he was a kid to get the basketball, and he was climbing the ladder and he slipped and he fell off and he broke his arm. And he has been afraid of climbing ladders ever since. So now he's working at a company that says, you know, Frank, it's the pandemic. Everybody's got to pitch in. You need to get up on the ladder too. So you're going to have to climb up. It's 10 feet up there. You're going to have to get the boxes down. You're just going to have to pitch in. And he's losing it. I mean, look at his face. So he comes to us and we say, sure, let's help you do this. So the first thing that we need to do to help Frank overcome this fear is we need to figure out where can he stand on the ladder and not be afraid at all. He doesn't have that look on his face. His palms aren't sweaty. He's not gripping hard. He's relaxed. He's comfy. He's fine. He's not scared. So maybe you and I could stand on the 3rd or the 4th rung of a ladder and not feel any wooziness or anything at all. But he's really scared, you know, broken arm. So for him, he needs to have his foot on the ground at all time. So he has to start with 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot on the 1st rung. He's fine. He can have that foot on the first rung as long as his other foot is on the ground. And so that's where we have to start. I mean, that's where he is. We can't control it. It's where his emotions are telling us he can be. So he's standing on that first rung and on the ground. And now we're going to teach him some relaxation exercises. We're going to have him breathing deeply. He's going to be thinking about, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? My foot is what, 6 inches from the ground? This is silly. I can do this. So he takes his other foot, he's on the first rung, and he's like, well, that was easy and silly. I'm totally fine. And so he little by little makes his way up that ladder. But there's this constant checking in, because if he starts to get nervous, like he gets up to the third rung and he starts to feel his palms sweating as he's gripping a little bit harder, and he realizes he's clenching a little bit and his pulse is quickening, and we need to back him down. So he needs to get back down to where he's comfortable. We're done for the day. We're not gonna make him scared. He's gonna be fine just at that level. Okay. If his boss, we work really hard, we get him up to like that third level, and he's finally now he can get up to the fourth rung. He's doing so great. And his boss finally says, Frank, I can't take it. You're killing me. Get up there, get that box, do your job. And so Frank makes his way up, and he's having trouble breathing, and he gets up to the top, and he sees everybody watching, and he grabs the box, and he looks around, and he gets dizzy, and he falls off the ladder, breaks his other arm, let alone whatever was in the box. Desensitization fail, right? We do this all the time with ourselves, with our dogs. We do this like, sure, I know you're uncomfortable with those kids, but he's really cute. He'll be fine, or yeah, my dog's great. She can handle being alone for 30 minutes. Let's go see a movie. We have to go at the dog's pace. We had to go at Frank's pace. He went too far, too fast. Now he's going to need like IV drip of Valium and morphine and whatever else he's going to need if he wants to overcome this fear of the ladder. So in order for desensitization to work, every step of the way, he's got to not be scared, move in tiny increments that we can know that he's not going to be scared. He's got to be relaxed. Okay. So 1, 2, 3. So we got to think about what our ladder is for our dog. Okay. Rather than thinking, all right, I'm going to go out for 30 seconds and then I'm going to come back in, and then I'll go out for 1 minute and then I'm going to come back in. Really think about like Frank and the ladder. Like, would it have occurred to you that to start training somebody to step on a ladder, to make their way up a ladder, that to begin, we actually are going to start with them standing on the ground? Most people would be like, yeah, I got on the second rung or something. But it's where his fear is dictating where we need to go. So what are the things, what are the pieces, what are the steps of a ladder that make up us leaving? Well, if we're sitting down, we have to stand up. Then we have to walk X number of steps to the door. We've got to touch the doorknob, turn the doorknob. We can open the door an inch. We can open the door a little more, a little more, a little more. We can step 1 foot through. We can step out, but don't close the door. So on and on and on. Each little piece could be that moment where your dog goes from, I'm great, to, oh, good Lord, So what we do to build the ladder for the dogs that we work with is what I call a doorknob test. So remember how I said that oftentimes, people get a book on separation anxiety, or I used to do this as a trainer. I don't do it anymore. And they tell you we need to do an assessment. We need to figure out where, how far your dog can go before they get scared. So what I want you to do is leave, lock up, and watch your dog on a video. Well, if you've come to me or if you've purchased a book, you already have enough knowledge. You know that your dog pants and paces and barks and howls and chews the door frame and pees and all these kinds of things. You know this. So we don't need to see it again, right? We need to start helping the dog. So forget about doing one of those assessments. We're going to do an active assessment. We're going to start training the dog right off the bat. So what I want you to do the doorknob test, this is what I have my clients do. You sit somewhere that could encourage your dog to settle down and relax. So in our case, it was our family room. Emma has a little spot on the couch that she always sits on when we're watching TV. So if I were to, back in the day, walk to the door, she would follow. And then when I came back, she would be sitting, she would follow me back. And then I would go to the door and she would follow. And then I would come back and she would sit on the couch. So we're going to use that. We're going to say, we know this is like your home base. You always come back here. So I'm going to use that to shape the dog into a relaxed position while I play this game, while I do this doorknob test. When you do this test, you're going to pretend you don't have a dog. So we talked about that when it's right to teach our dogs independence. This is it. Food, toys, independence. Active training, this moment. When we do this training, whenever you work on building your dog's ability to stay home alone, ignore him. A dog who is super clingy, Emma the Beagle is of the kind of dog who only felt safe touching a person. She had to be pressed next to me. She had to be touching me to feel safe. So she would, when I started doing her training, she would come and she would literally sit on top of me or press into me. And so I would just, ignore her. And then when it was time to go, I would gently lift her off and put her back on the couch. And then I'd go do my thing. Eventually, she's like, oh, this is annoying. You keep going and coming and going and coming. And I just want to lie down. So she moves a little farther away so that I don't have to disturb her. Okay. So we want to kind of create that image in our mind. That's what we're looking for. So in order to do it, we can't pay them attention. If they want to play any of that, can't do it. For the test, don't pick anything up. Don't pick up your keys. Don't put on your coat. Don't put your shoes on if they haven't been on. We just want to see the dog's reaction when you go to the door. You're going to walk to the door, turn the doorknob, but do not open the door, and then go back to where you were sitting. If you open the door, a lot of the dogs actually fly out, right? Like if your dog is afraid to be alone, oftentimes they have figured out I can fly. So that's why we do this. Walk to the door, turn the doorknob, don't open the door, return to where you were sitting. What happens? Almost every dog flies. Some dogs, as soon as you turn the doorknob, start barking. I've seen dogs do somersaults in the air, flipping, barking just from the person standing up. So let's say your dog flies to the door when you turn the doorknob, when you walk to the door and turn the doorknob. Okay, cool. You came back, your dog is now back on the couch with you, or maybe a desk. If your dog is used to being calm and relaxed when you work, you could sit at your desk to do this and your dog keeps going back to his bed. So we've gone to the door, flew to the door, came back with us. Okay. Now let's think about our ladder. Let's start working backwards. What if I go halfway to the door? You go halfway to the door, dog flies. Okay, we got to go down another rung. What if I walk, let's say halfway was like 5 steps. What if I walk 3 steps to the door? Your dog stands up but doesn't fly. Okay, backing up a little more. What if I walk 2 steps? The dog stays lying down, but his head is up when you move. We can start there. That's a good. Now we're shaping this dog. Now we've got the dog remaining lying down. The head's going up, but he's lying down. So we're going to work on these teeny tiny little things until we find that point where we get our dog starting to look relaxed. As you're doing all of this, each time you do something, when you sit back down, write it down. Did your dog get up? When did it happen? Did he get up when you turned the doorknob, or was it as soon as you started going? Did your dog follow you all the way, part of the way? What about, were there any vocalizations? What about the micro behaviors, micro actions? Did you notice like one ear pop up? Was there a leg twitch? Did the eyes start to open wide? We're looking for all this kind of stuff. You're going to see most when you're walking back, you'll be able to watch the dog if they're still staying down for those micro things. And you can also watch it on like videos on your phone. So to do this training right for the test and then for the subsequent training, we need to create that Zen atmosphere. We need them to be relaxed. So dogs who are running to the window and looking out and barking at everything, we're going to close the windows. We could use white noise or pink noise, brown noise. There's, different types of sounds that maybe, white noise works for some dogs, but other dogs, it's so static that they need more variation. So it's more like ocean sounds or forest rain sounds, that kind of thing. Some dogs, TV disguises sounds, radio, whatever it is, you can play with different things. One of my colleagues said that she has a client whose dog is best when they play the Cartoon Network, that disguises all the outside sounds that gets that dog up and barking and stuff. If you have multiple animals, well, look at Remy and Bandy are my two dog and cat duo who had just like so many adventures. Bandy, the little cat, just taunts Remy all the time. That cat is like one of my favorite people in the whole world. He is it's just hilarious, but it doesn't help Remy, who's trying to chill out, that this cat is taunting him. So we've had to play around with different things. What if we put Bandy upstairs behind the gate? Switch it. What if we put Remy upstairs behind the gate? One of them needs to be somewhere else because they get into too much trouble. It's not safe. And Remy just can't relax the way that we need him to. There are, a lot of these guys are really toy crazy. Enzo on the top right was my first ball crazy dog, like the most I've ever seen. He would play fetch 24 hours a day if he could. He would just keep dropping the ball and dropping the ball. So we had to pick up all the balls. We had to pick up the toys. I have other dogs. It's not balls, but toys. Just, they want to shake them. They just, some dogs, they just get, when they're tense, they just get overly playful. They do, or playful, I should say. They'll do zoomies. They're shaking toys and stuff, but it's not because they're having fun. They're stressed and this energy is coming out some way. So we have to put away those toys, put away the balls, and help these guys learn to just settle down. It took about a week to get Enzo to understand and to feel okay with not having balls 24/7 to throw to him. Where you sit or stand can make a difference. Like I said, some people, the desk is better. For us, it was the couch. I have one client who, when she's at her desk, Zadie, the little Chihuahua on the bottom there, Zadie looks like that when she's sitting at the desk. Zadie is like, give me the air vent. I'm chilling. I'm having a great time. But for the first time we used this space, the client moved her chair about a foot away from the desk so that I could see well from the camera on her computer, on her desk. And being a foot away, Zadie was like, we play now? This is when we play, right? When you back away, even though you're still sitting there, don't we play? And she was grabbing toys and running around and going. As soon as Danielle literally moved her chair back directly in front of the desk, this is the Zadie we got. So it's a tiny little change like that can do so much to help a dog finally relax. Remy is my windowsill chewer. So for him, having some good old fashioned dog bones and stuff to chew on really helps to settle him down. I don't use food toys for departure training, for separation anxiety training while we're doing this stuff, because some dogs, Zadie's one of them, will consume food but is still just as scared. And so that's not helping her. We need to see her truly relaxed, not this conflicted, I really want that food, but oh my God, I'm scared, but I want that food. So there's this conflict, and we want her to be conflict free. And then take a breath yourself. My husband and I, both of us, can look at the other one and go, you're working, aren't you? And we'll feel that the other one has picked up their cell phone and is like texting for a work thing or emailing or something. And it's like the energy in the room shifts. You just know it when suddenly you go from zen, calm, relaxed, fun to, I got to answer this stupid text. So think about that, like, go ahead and breathe and think in your mind that, I need to be as relaxed as Zadie. I need to just be able to flop and feel okay about this, because I know that I'm not going to push my dog farther than he or she can handle. We're going to break down that ladder into teeny tiny little pieces so that my dog can succeed and I don't have to worry. And so you can breathe and you can do this. There are tip-offs to us leaving, which I think we all know. It seems pretty obvious. You put your shoes on, you grab your keys, you grab your bag. One of my colleagues said today that her dog, the woman always goes to the bathroom just before she leaves. So the last thing she does is flush the toilet and then leave. And so that toilet flushing has been a trigger. Oh my God, she's leaving. So think about all the little things that predict you're leaving. So there's a difference between getting up and walking to the door and the things that we grab, the things that we do. The way that I like to do it is introduce them one day at a time. So like on day one, only use just yourself, it's about you in the door. It's about you moving towards the door. Day two, you can, start with your shoes on if you don't put your shoes on, or you could say, I'm going to go to keys. And then every time you go to the door, if you go to the door, you pick up your keys each time. Make sure that, like, holy cow, those shoes really triggered him. Okay, let's put that aside. Let's deal with that another day. Let's start to get this dog comfortable with being alone. We'll add the shoes back in. Keys, amazing. Keys didn't affect him at all. So the next day we pick up our keys every time and we add in a bag or whatever it is that you bring, your wallet, your face mask. I should add that to this list. Face masks are triggering dogs. Welcome to the pandemic. To do the training, think about doing it as a session rather than ins and outs throughout the day. So there's a term in psychology called habituation. And what it is if a sound or some other stimulus is not scary to us, we stop noticing it. So it's like you move into a new apartment and you walk in and you're like, whoa, that fridge is really loud. And then like 5 minutes later, you're like, hey, it stopped buzzing. Well, it actually didn't. It was this constant hum that wasn't aversive. It wasn't scary or uncomfortable for you in any way. So you habituated, it was gone. If the refrigerator buzzed and then it stopped, and then 20 minutes later it buzzed and then it stopped, and then 2 hours later it buzzed and then it stopped, you're going to notice it every single time. And so when we're training dogs with separation anxiety, if we pick up our keys and put them down, and then go walk over here and then go back, and we pick up our keys. And then 2 hours later, we pick up our keys, or we open the door and then step out and then come back in. And then 2 hours later, we go out and then we come in. It, in most cases, is not going to teach the dog what we want them to learn. Remember that anxiety is the anticipation of something scary. So when you first grab those keys, when you first touch that door, when you first open that door, that is potent. And if there's a long break in between doing it, every time you do it, it could be just as potent, or it could get worse. It could be trigger stacking and happen more and more as the day goes on. Instead, do it in a session. So we figured out that the dog can stays down when we take 2 steps. Cool. Now we're going to do 15 to 30 minutes of exercises. We're going to do something like this. We're going to stand up. We're going to sit down. We're going to look at our dog, write down what we saw. What did his ears do? His eyes do? What did his body do? Did he look up? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to wait 30 to 90 seconds. And then we're going to do another exercise. Maybe this time we walk 1 step. And then the next time we stand up again. And then the next time we walk 2 steps. And then we walk 3 steps. And we go back to 1 step. And we kind of noodle around this area of the dog is pretty comfortable around 1 or 2 steps. We do enough of these and the dog goes, what the heck? Like, what are you doing? And then they're just like, I don't have to worry about this anymore. This getting up thing isn't scary. This is boring. Flop on their side. And they're totally chill. And then we keep going. We can move. How far can we get to the door? Can we turn the doorknob? Can we open the door? By doing these little baby steps, by doing this stand up, sit down, walk 1 step, walk 2 step, these little tiny things, it's crazy the magic that can happen. Because a few days in doing these things, suddenly we realize, hey, my dog stopped following me when I go to the bathroom. My dog's not sitting in front of the bathroom door crying anymore when I go. Like, just these little tiny things. Because all this time, your dog has been, every time you stand up, that anticipation that it's going to be that moment. And now we're changing their thinking. There's nothing to anticipate. Nothing bad happens when I stand up, when I walk, when I do these things. So that's what a session looks like. You're just going to kind of vary things up, move a little bit farther, but always within the comfort zone, kind of like climbing that ladder, and write down your observations each time. If you can become a PhD in your dog's language, if you can recognize when the eyes go wide, what this ear turn is happening, if you just write them all down, you're going to see some crazy patterns. And you're going to realize, wow, my dog's ear stands up this whole time. And then at some point in the session, the ear finally folds down. And after that happens, my dog flops on his side every single time. And then he sighs and he's totally fine. And I can leave now for 5 minutes, within a week or whatever, or a day, whatever it is for each dog. It's like dieting. It could, take, back in the day, my husband would lose 10 pounds in a month and I would 6 months to lose 10 pounds. So the same thing, one dog might be fine for 30 minutes after X number of days, and another dog might be up to 30 seconds. It's just each dog, but you go at the dog's pace. And then as your dog gets more and more comfortable, now things start to snowball and you can be gone longer and longer and longer. Keep a running log, like every day when you're going to train, what time you did the training, who did it? Was it me? Was it my husband? Was it both of us? Were the kids involved? Blah, 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 blah. How many exercises did you do until the very last one? So all of those, stand up, sit down, walk 2 steps, walk 3 steps, all that kind of stuff, that is all warm-ups to get ready for the big one. And maybe today the big one is I make it all the way to the door. And if we made it all the way to the door at the end of this training session and the dog stayed flopped on the side and was relaxed, you killed it. That's what you want to do. If you made it to the door and your dog flew to the door as soon as you got there, you went too far. And so you can kind of keep a running log. I like a 1, 2, 3 system. Dog's totally relaxed, gets a 1. 2 is dog gets up and, runs to the door or is looking scared or something. That's a 2. A 3 is all the things that people call me for. The pacing, the barking, the howling, all of that stuff. We don't want to see 3s. We want to see 1s and 2s. That's what tells us if our dog is ready for a little bit more or if we need to keep working where we are. So I'm going to show you Dixie. She is a 2.5-year-old German Shepherd. I'm still working with them. We're up to about week 7 now. This is our 7th week together. We did the baby steps, weeks 1 and 2. She was at 0 seconds. This video is at the end of week 2. What I want you to, between each exercise, when you do the stuff, when you take the steps and then come back, make sure you wait 30 to 90 seconds. Let the dog relax a little bit. In this video, I have cut out all of those breaks so that you can see the body language. What's amazing about Dixie is she was so shut down that the only way I could figure out where her fear threshold was by looking at her eyes and her ears. This is a week later, 2 weeks later. She's more comfortable in her home, so she's giving us more behavior. She's lifting her head up. She's turning and looking. But what she looks like right now is basically what I looked at for the first 30 minutes of the first training session with her. So they're doing the little baby steps. So look at things like, let's see. So her eyebrows go up. She lies down. Her little legs twitchy over there. Her eyes are still pretty wide. That was a sigh. That was a good one. She sighed there. So now they move again. Did you see the right ear? The right ear went first, then the left ear. Her eyes opened and her eyebrows raised. This is the stuff. This is all I was looking at the first week or so, was those little teeny tiny micro actions that were happening. Now her eyes were getting much closed on this one. Okay, they get up again. Her eyes are still. She's not quite sure. Now her leg's kicking. Dixie twitches. Her leg always twitches and kicks just before she starts to really get relaxed. She's still alert. Her ears are still going. Her eyes are still going. So we're still warming her up. She's not ready to be left alone yet. She's still kind of taking it all in. But overall, she's becoming more relaxed. Her eyes are closing now. Same thing, eyebrows. You see the eyebrows going up and down. Her eyes are wide open. Her ears weren't as active on that one. She didn't lift up that time. So it seems crazy to think that you could go from doing these little tiny baby steps and there's that leg kick. There she is. It's like her body's relaxing. I'm going to study this and try to understand. I see these twitches and these kicks with many dogs. So I'm interested in studying that. Like how, is that a muscle release that's happening? So now they're going to make it all the way up to the kitchen. Maybe even, I think they're going to go into the mudroom. She's staying down. Her eyes are not showing as much stress. She's not lifting her eyebrows as much. And there's another break between them. Ears pull back when they go. They opened the door. They opened the door to the garage there. So that startled her. She's checking it out, but she's like, okay. It's starting to feel a little comfier. There's a big sigh. So her forehead's smooth. She's not, she doesn't have her eyes quite so up, open, wide, on alert as they were before. Her ears, they're still up, but they're not moving so much. There's another leg kick. Now she's starting to snooze. Her eyes are closing. Her whole body's just getting looser. And there it is. That's the Dixie side flop, followed by a sigh. That is the first time I was training her, and I had just, I literally was having a panic attack because she was just lying there without moving at all. And the only thing I could go on was how wide her eyes opened, and did her ear lift a little bit at the base of the ear, and did it turn or anything like that. But I just kept focusing on those little things. I have spent 30 minutes for other dogs where all I can see is one eyeball, and I will spend that whole time just looking at how wide the eye is opening and how dilated the pupil is, and keep working the training till I can figure out how to just little by little get that dog really comfortable. And then they flop, and then they fall onto their side like that. And with Dixie, we learned pretty quickly that now we can leave. We did like one or two other exercises whenever she like falls into her side flop. And by the end of the third week, we're up to 11 minutes, then 20 minutes, 45. Last time we pushed, we were up to 1 hour, 20 minutes. We're going to shoot for an hour 45 the next time. We're going to be really smart about it because we don't want to get cocky. We don't know where her ceiling is. She may hit a point where she's like, that's too much for me. But right now, by little by little by little, it takes us fewer warm-up exercises to get her to flop over. And she's actually so calm nowadays that they'll leave and she hasn't flopped yet. And as they're driving away, she'll fall on her side and flop. So it's that body language. It's all about the body language. One final myth: medications should be a last resort. No, they used to be thought of that way, whether it be for an actual like physical pain or for anxiety. We get these dogs the help that they need as quickly as possible. This is Sheba. It turned out that she was in pain, like Emma. So when she got on medications to deal with the pain, this is the girl we got. She was playing with toys and enjoying walks more and stuff like this. The right medication, whether it's anti-anxiety or pain medicine or whatever it may be, can be transformative to bring out joy and happiness and more playfulness in these dogs. I'm going to now show you, I know that we've covered a lot, so I'm going to kind of get through this one a little faster. These are our frustrated dogs, okay? This is something, what I'm going to show you now is a training plan for a dog who, like Juniper, the one who was behind the gate, just can't settle down. I need, give me this, give me that. Rah, I want to go with you. We need to help these guys learn to settle. We need to get them to relax. I've used this training plan if I've got 2 dogs in the house and people need one of them to stay home while the other one goes to the vet or something. If they're afraid to be alone, we'll do the desensitization stuff first, get them really good with it. And then I'll use this training plan to then teach them that one can leave and the other one stays. If you're going to use any kind of confinement area, this is the plan to use to get them really comfortable in that space. Asking dogs to do things that they're not ready to do, expecting our dog to hold a sit stay at the farmer's market, at the granola stand, when there's a beef stand next to it, is very frustrating to a dog. And it's frustrating to us. My dog never listens. My dog is so stubborn. Your dog probably hasn't learned it well enough yet. So in order to know when we train our dogs anything using operant conditioning, where we use a food reward to reinforce the behavior that we want to maintain or increase, we're going to use these counting rules. We're going to work in sets of 5. If the dog gets 4 or 5 correct and is relaxed, we can move to the next step in the plan. If they get 3 correct, repeat another set of 5 of that step you just did. If they get 0 to 2 correct, or they're not relaxed, we're going to go back to something easier. So this is Riley. Riley literally flipped in the air and started screaming the second his mom got off the couch. And after 2 exercises, we realized we're not going to relax him doing the doorknob test. He needs some additional help. He's a true pandemic dog who just needed to have some, needed to improve some impulse control, just needed to chill out a bit and learn how to feel more comfortable in his surroundings. So we use, now I use truthfully, it's a downstay. The training plan is simply a downstay training plan. We'll send it out to everybody after. I'll send you guys slides and the downstay plan. You can use any downstay plan that you use, but we've got to always remember that the purpose of this is we're training an emotion, not a behavior. This isn't, I want a show dog. This is, I want to teach my dog how to relax. So I'm using the same training plan, but I've got a different goal than just staying down. My plan that I got from, it's what we all use from the Academy for Dog Trainers. It starts with food distractions. Then we switch to movement, walking around, walking away. And then it just builds on time. Put down, you give it to him. Okay. All right. So you're going to touch the floor with the treat and then give it to him. Yay. That's 1. Beautiful. Do that 5 times.
Like a foot away or doesn't matter?
What you're doing is perfect.
Okay.
1. And you're stretching your hamstrings too. 3. And give it to him. Oh my goodness. Look at him go.
A treat monger. He'll do whatever it takes to get this salmon training treat.
And do 1 more. All right. Can you put it on the floor for 3 seconds?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Oh my goodness. Give it to him. Yeah. At the end of 3, right away, pick it up and give it to him. 1, 2, 3. Yay. Look at him go.
Oopsie.
See, oh, and he didn't even move for that. Give him that because he's a awesome guy.
Good little buddy.
1, 2, and do 1 more. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So look at his body position. Do you see how he's resting on his hip? That's a really relaxed position. The way that she's feeding him, where she's putting the food down underneath his little nose, It's keeping his head low. That's going to help to shape him into a relaxed position. So after we get him really comfortable with whether there's food around anywhere, he maintains his stay in a relaxed position. Then we start walking around. The goal of this one is we're going to walk all the way around him without him getting up. And so we're going to break it down. We start with walk 1 step, come back, give him the treat, do that 5 times. If he's got it, we go to 2 steps and so on.
Look at this kid, happy boy. That's 3. That's 4. That's 5. You can do 3 steps. That's 1. Good job. Beautiful. That's 2. Starting to settle down even.
Yeah.
There's 3. Interesting, when you spoke, his little tail lifted up a bit.
Uh-huh.
It shows it's like, you know, relaxation is such a key part of this. And
Yes.
you know,
I'm with you.
do 2 more. It's 4. I might have lost count, but if there's an extra, it's
No, I think you're right.
and that's 5. Okay, it's gonna get crazy now. Can you walk all the way around him?
Let's give it a shot.
What a pro. That is 1.
So after I get these dogs, so you notice how Riley's on a blanket? That blanket was only used for this training. You get a mat, you get a bed, you get a blanket, whatever it is. The only time it comes out is when you do this training. When you're done, it goes away. And so that blanket becomes a cue. This is where you're going to lie down and relax. So after we did all of those things, just getting his belly to stay on the floor, then we started adding in, you know, doing like the desensitization stuff that we did. So you open the door and come back, or you step outside and you come back. But in this case, because he's really frustrated, every time she comes back, she's going to give him food. So if we've got a dog who's just scared and we're just teaching him to relax that way, I don't use food for that. When I've got a dog who's really frustrated, really agitated, and I need to bring him down, keeping his head in the game, letting him work for it, giving him a little piece of food each time they come in helps to keep him mellow. So now we're just doing, this is just, you know, a bunch of go out and come in. She puts her keys back in there. She comes back in and he gets his little treat. Good job.
All right, step out, lock the door, and then come right back in.
Okay.
So we've gotten Riley comfortable with the sounds of the keys being picked up and the sounds of the door locking and all that good stuff.
Do you have your cell phone on you?
Yes, I have it right here.
All right, so head on out, pull out and park somewhere on the street.
Okay. Should I put him back down? Tracy, should I put him back down on the mat?
Yeah, now you go ahead. Go ahead and give him a couple treats.
I'll talk about
Okay.
this in a second.
Come here, Alice. That's not him. You stay with Miss Tracy.
So that is what Riley looks like. Um, the first couple of weeks, we just did basic downstate training. We just had to teach this kid to finally relax and finally bring down that frustration. Once we got him to that basic line, we were able to truck. He's well past 3 hours now. She no longer has to leave him with friends when she goes to do stuff. The question is, a lot of people say, well, first of all, that didn't work because he got up, he went over to the door, and they say, a downstate doesn't make sense. How can you train a dog to just lie down the whole time you're gone? And my answer is that's not what I'm doing. I'm not looking to teach a dog to win an award as being able to hold the longest downstay. It's not about the behavior, it's about the emotion. So early on in the training, whether you're doing desensitization or this anti-frustration type stuff, if the dog gets up, well, that tells me the dog either doesn't know, isn't able to hold his to hold his impulses yet, or he's scared and he's going to the door. Once we've worked with the dog for a long time and we see this kind of like floopy, floppy, relaxed behavior, if Riley gets up and goes and walks over to the door and looks and whatever, if he then comes back and he lies down or he goes and finds someplace else in the house to go lie down, my job is done. That's what's important. So Stacy was a little bit concerned. Oh, he went to the door. Now she gets it. It's okay. It doesn't matter if he goes to the door. As long as when he does, he then goes and he lies down someplace, which is what he always does. So whether your dog has been fine throughout the pandemic, has been okay when you left him, or you've gone through all these various training methods and your dog is now fine, whatever it is, we've got to keep the skills up. We've got to go out without our dogs if they can handle it. So don't think I'm saying, hey, leave your home every single day while your dog is at home barking and howling and peeing and stuff. If your dog looks like Emma the Beagle, looks like Riley, looks like Dixie, if your dog is truly fine being left alone, then get out. Go do some stuff so that we don't create a monster. Use your normal departure process sometimes. Grab your bag and your shoes for work and your keys and all that kind of stuff, so that doesn't get stale. And you can even train without leaving the home. So you can use the downstay training plan, teach your dog like a really cool downstay, have him stay here and give him a food toy. And then you go in another room and he's got to play with his food toy there. That's independence. You can use your normal departure process. I get up in the morning, I put on my suit, I blow dry my hair, I do whatever. And then rather than leaving to go someplace, I go to my home office. Whatever you do, we just want to keep these guys used to being able to stay by themselves. And now's the time, if they're not, and work back in an office is looming, then it is definitely the time now to start working on it to help them feel better about it. So that is the ton of information that I just threw at you guys. I am happy to take questions. Again, we'll send you the handout and the downstate training plan. But if you need anything, reach out to us. My website is setbankstraining.com. You can email me, Tracy at setbankstraining.com. And I'm going to turn this off so that we can see faces again.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah.
We have some questions in the chat. If you guys still have questions, please feel free to drop them in there. There are some of them that I think got answered pretty closely thereafter, but a few things. So what about greetings when you get home or goodbyes? I've heard people say that this can contribute to separation anxiety.
Keep it cool. we don't want to create a, like I worked with these people who they have a cat who they've had forever, and they would always say, bye kitty, whatever the kitty's name is, you're the king of the castle. They always said that, and then they left, and the dog started latching on to that and then becoming scared every time they said it. So we want to try to just keep it nice and cool. When you come back in, say hi to your dog. If you're doing a training session and you're doing exercises within each of those exercises, no, you're going to ignore your dog. But if your dog is to a place where you can leave 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is, when you come home, if your dog comes up to you to say hello, say hello. Give your dog a little snuggle. We throw food in the yard for Emma to hunt. It's decompressing for her to do that. It can be very frustrating for the dog. You come in and they're like, oh, you're home. And then we completely ignore them. We don't want to create more frustration. So say hi to your dog, but don't be like, throwing a ticker tape parade. Wait,
Oh,
you're
sorry,
muted.
there we go. Another question, what does it mean if a fear response has increased over time? So maybe a dog was okay with a certain thing at first and no longer is.
Well, it means that we need to help them. So how do we do that? One thing is if it's something that we're doing in terms of we think the dog is comfortable with something, so we keep pushing, but they're actually not comfortable, and now they're becoming more and more afraid. So that just means that we're pushing them up that ladder too high before they're ready. If it's an abrupt change, if it's something new, then I think it's a really good idea to see a veterinarian to make sure that there isn't some type of underlying health issue that might have caused this change in behavior.
Awesome. So for a puppy that's left in a crate when we leave, how would we do these sessions with him in the crate? He willingly goes in there if asked.
So I like to, if I'm using a crate and the puppy is already comfortable in the crate, then I do the desensitization, but I do, when the people come in, I have them gently drop a not too exciting treat in for the dog. Just because otherwise it can be frustrating. Why am I in this box? These people are here. So by giving them the little treat, it helps them to just stay in the game. Be careful that it's not a super high value treat, because that can get them excited. We want them to relax. If they're not comfortable with the crate, then do the downstate training and really watch the dog's body language and only work at his pace, so that he stays relaxed.
Awesome. So we had a question about medication. At what point do you recommend talking to vets about things like daily medications like Prozac, or episodic treatments with things like trazodone?
I think you should talk to your vet right away. If your dog is fearful, then there are medications that can help them immediately, and there are medications that can help that level things out for them over time. And in some cases, the root of it is pain, or in Emma's case. So not only was she in pain, she also was having seizures. We didn't know. And once she got on the seizure medication, most of her anxiety went away. There's a correlation between seizures and anxiety. So talk to the vet about behavior meds, talk to the vet about overall health, make sure your dog is doing well physically, emotionally, all of it. That's going to set him up for success so that you can do the training as quickly as possible.
And that's a huge plug for our upcoming webinar with veterinary behaviorist Amy Pike on the 30th. So if you're interested in learning more about what veterinary behavior is and what it isn't, and a lot of that will cover things like meds, definitely sign up for that webinar. And as a reminder, we as trainers can't recommend meds. We are not vets, but definitely talk to your vet. And if you want someone who specializes in behavior, look out for a veterinary behaviorist. Someone asked a question about what you do when you have two dogs and maybe one of them has separation anxiety and the other one doesn't.
I just go at the scareder dog's pace. Is that a word? The more fearful dog's pace. And then, like I said, if If there's also an issue about one dog having to stay home while the other one leaves, and that's very difficult for the one, we'll use the downstate training. Both dogs are working on it. And we get them closer and closer to the door. And then we start changing the criteria. The dog who is going to stay has to hold the down in a relaxed manner. The other dog sits at the door and gets the leash put on him, and the dog lying down gets a treat. And little by little, we get the other dog out the door, and the dog lying down learns that that's okay too.
Awesome. So we have a question from Sandy. This is actually one that I was going to ask as well. So what if it's not just about being left alone, but if it's being left not with their key person and with other family members?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. That was the case with Emma as well. If I went for a jog and my husband was home, she'd cry the whole time. One thing to do, talk to the vet, get behavior meds to help this guy. I can speak from personal experience that even if the dog even though Emma was uncomfortable when I wasn't there, so she wasn't ever, 100% under threshold in those times, I still was able to use the desensitization protocol to get her able to be home alone. And then over time, she lost that connection, that intensity with me. It also helped that we had pet sitters that came and stayed with her. And though it was scary for her at first, the more she got to know these people, she started to really enjoy it. And so she realized she became less dependent on me, because she had all like this little village of people spending time and cuddling her. And she learned that she could trust other people too.
Awesome. So a very common question for us: how do you mitigate increasing the fear when you have to go out, but the dog's still in the process of learning? So how can you not ruin all the good work you've already done when you know you need to leave?
Okay, so there's a few ways to do this. One, can we bring our village together? Can we find neighbors? Or, right now in the pandemic, this is less of a problem. The harder problem right now in the pandemic is people leave your home. It's so hard to get people to leave. But so if there's friends that you can count on, family members, daycare, rover sitters, pet sitters, whatever it is, if you can't afford those things, or your schedule is too unpredictable, you just can't do it, there are a couple of options. The first one is 100% talk to the vet. Can we get some anti-anxiety medications, some situational short-acting stuff to help this kid in the short term? And some dogs, that is all they need. They get that medicine and they're able to just lie down and snooze when you're gone. Many dogs, it's not the case, but there are some dogs that can do it. The other way that we can approach this is dogs are good at discriminating differences. So if your dog is used to being put in the crate when you have to leave her alone, do that for the regular absences. But then when you do the training, don't use the crate. Do it out in the open. And the dog learns, okay, I'm scared if I'm here. I'm not scared if I'm here. If we're going to do the crate thing, if you're going to do that thing, I implore you to work with your vet, because we want to minimize the suffering of your dogs as much as possible. I am not in the philosophy that, well, if you can't always find somebody to take your dog, I can't work with you, I'm not going to help you. We all have lives. I understand what it is. Let's work together to find the least fearful approach for your dog. So partner with your vet to see if you can find those answers.
Awesome. So another question about enrichment. How do we use specific materials, or what specific materials are there that are puppy safe, since we have a 3-month-old that will chew on everything?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of puppies do well with snuffle mats, I find. Make sure that as soon as you're done with the food toy that you put it away. Don't leave it out for the dog to eat it. if you go to Kong, on the Kong website, it explains, like, based on your puppy's behavior, the age of your dog and all this kind of thing, exactly what materials your dog should be getting. So it does take a little bit more work. But there are toys for everything. They've really mastered it. Again, you can do something as simple as, like what we do, throwing kibble in the yard. You could take a blanket and crumple up the blanket and hide the little pieces of food in that. You could even use little tiny cups and Tupperware and different lids and stuff, and make like a Sniffari course inside your home. So your dog's kibble is, you measure out the kibble at the beginning of the day, and now I'm going to put it in like little different containers in different places. And sometimes I'm going to use it as reward when we go on walks, and I'm going to use it when I need him to sit in front of the door. And so we think of the kibble as doggy dollars, and we want to use them wisely. So you use it for partially for training and partially for enrichment while you're feeding them. I really like the little Sniffari stuff, and that way, and as soon as you're done, you pick up all the little cups and stuff and you put them away.
And another great question, if we're giving the dog the snuffle mat, should we do it like 30 minutes before leaving the house versus leaving it with the dog when we're gone?
My approach to enrichment is, it's not to be used as a distraction when you leave. The idea is, we make these dogs' lives so full and so rich that when it's time for us to leave, they're like, all right, I'm gonna go snooze now, because they just had a great time. So think like breakfast time. Instead of feeding them out of a dish, they get their food in a snuffle mat, or Emma's meals she gets 2 meals a day. And those are, we measure out her food. She gets some food in her snuffle mat. While she's working on that, we run down to the basement and we hide a stuffed Kong someplace. And she runs downstairs, and then little beagle tails all over the place, sniffing around. She finds her Kong and she does that. While she's doing that, we put more food in the snuffle mat and some in a monster ball in our bedroom. And so while that's like before we sit down for breakfast. So it takes us a few minutes just to put all that stuff together for her. And then while we're having our breakfast, she's running all over the house on her little scavenger hunt, doing her stuff. So by the time we're ready to go someplace, she's like, I'm going to snooze. You guys go have fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tracy. I think that's all the questions that we have for tonight. Thank you so much for coming out today to listen to Tracy talk about separation anxiety. I know that was a ton of information. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. You can reach out to Tracy. I'll make sure her contact information gets uploaded with the video. And you can also reach out to us anytime. If you want to know more about enrichment, you can check out our website, everydogaustin.org, and go to resources. There's a whole section about enrichment that has some links to some other information about it. And definitely let us know as you have questions. Again, if you have a reactive dog, please sign up for the reactive dog group. If you'd like to make a donation today, we would appreciate that greatly. And please follow both of us on social media so that you can see the cool updates from Tracy and from Every Dog. We really appreciate y'all coming out tonight, and a huge thank you again, Tracy. We really appreciate you being here. Tracy, for those of you who don't know, is like pretty fabulous and pretty fancy. So we're really excited to have her here tonight. We really appreciate it. So
this has been fun. Yeah, reach out if you guys need anything. Don't hesitate.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.